Well, what another week at sport it's been. It's time for another Hot Air Sports podcast with me,
Go
Macca, and
on.
my good mate, Mahon. How are you, mate?
I'm very good, mate. Very good. The sun is shining, and there was plenty of sports over the weekend to keep me amused.
Certainly was. We
oh,
even got a bit of cricket over the weekend, mate, with Spark Sport showing the English cricket.
yeah, I missed out on that. I haven't been watching any cricket, mate. Can you give me a rough summary? Give me a highlights package. What's going on over there?
Yeah, well, the first test between England and the West Indies in Southampton, and England, they won the toss and decided to bat first and got rolled by Jason Holder and Shannon Gabriel on what was supposed to be the first day, but it ended up being the second day because they rained out most of the first day.
Yep.
Yeah, Holder 6 for 42 and Shannon Gabriel 4 for 62 as they rolled England for just over 200. And the Windies went on to beat England by 4 wickets earlier this morning. So a big win
for
the West Indies.
Work.
And they were without a couple of their top performers in Darren Bravo and Shimron Hetmeyer, who were chose not to tour. So a big win for the West Indies. And they've got the second test. I think it's starting on Friday. Can't remember the actual venue, but yeah, the first test in Southampton's out of the way. It was a bit weird. You could hear every shot played quite clearly and crisply, and it was funny when the good shots were played, not hearing the golf clap from the audience. So there's nobody there.
What about pitching the ball? Was that problematic? I noticed when we had that one-day match that was played in front of no one at the MCG when the Black Caps were over there just before the COVID hit. Seeing the players rummaging around in the seats for the ball, it reminded me of first 11 cricket.
Well, it was a test match, so there weren't too many big hits in the game.
Oh,
but
true.
The commentators had a bit of fun. They were on the Saturday. It was all cricket in England started up again, and the boys played a bit of a trick on Nasser Hussain in the commentary box, and he read out a score from one of the games played by the Cockermouth Cricket Club in England, and said that Hugh Jardon got 6 for 9.
No. He did not. Did he really?
And he read it out. And you could hear everybody in the background cracking up laughing, and it was basically sorry about that, Nas. Got ya.
Quality, beautiful, well done. It's
yes,
awesome.
Quality indeed.
So are the Windies back? Are the Windies back on the rise then, or is that? What do you reckon? Early season wobbles for the Poms, or?
Yeah, they had a couple of good performances. Shane Dowrich, the wicketkeeper, got a good 60 in the first innings, as did the opener Craig Brathwaite, and then it was Blackwell got some runs for them in the second innings, which took them through to that 4-wicket victory. So a good blowout.
It'll be good to see. It'll be good to see the Windies sort of coming back, wouldn't it, mate? They've been in the doldrums for a couple of decades now, and I'd like to see them.
Yes,
they're back where they belong.
Was also a really good program on the Spark Sport platform. It was called Curtly Ambrose Masterclass. Now, Curtly is, when we do our favourite all-time bowlers, Curtly will be number one. I just love Curtly Ambrose. And it was a really good program, and he was talking about, how he used to bowl in tandem with some guy named Walsh. Courtney, I think his first name was.
I think he calls him Walsh.
Yeah. And how they became, brothers from other mothers. How they're so close, and that really good program. If you get a chance, it's on Spark Sport platform called Curtly Ambrose Masterclass. It's a half an hour that you'll really enjoy, and he has a bit of a crack at a couple of English batsmen too, which is funny.
Brilliant.
So, on to this week.
Okay.
We've got a new segment. Talk us through it.
We do, mate. We do. We had a word about this. We've got our beautiful other halves, obviously, our beautiful wives, Michelle and Charisse. And we often say, we've got the sporting brains and they've got everything else. Well, we've decided to flip that on its ear and see whether they can live up to the hype. We've called this segment Wives Fives. And for the next 5 weeks, we're going to give them 5 matches to pick the results of. So last week we gave them 5 matches: Warriors v Titans, Liverpool against Burnley, the Blues and the Crusaders, Highlanders and the Hurricanes, and Carlton against the Bulldogs in the AFL Australian rules. So we'll go through those, and at the end of 5 weeks we'll tally them all up and see how well the ladies did and which one of our beautiful wives is at the top of the table. Okay, so Warriors Titans. What did Michelle go for?
Michelle went for the Titans. She didn't think the Warriors were going to. She went for the Warriors. It was the Titans that won, of course. But no, she thought the Warriors would carry on their previous good form. But sadly, it was not to be, and the Titans obviously came through.
That's right. Yeah, the Titans won that one in a narrow loss. We'll go over that shortly. Charisse also chose the Warriors. She said the Warriors were on good form last week, and the Titans have been a bit sloppy lately. I thought there was some very good in-depth analysis. I think she should have put her money on the ref, but we'll go over that shortly. Anyway, the Titans won, so they're none for one after that one. Then there was the Liverpool-Burnley game, which was a draw. So what did Michelle have on that one, Macca?
Well, Michelle went with her husband on this one and picked the the Premier League champions Liverpool. But yes, as we know, it was turned out to be a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, first draw for Liverpool at Anfield, unbelievably. Charisse also chose Liverpool because I love them too, and they're the best, which just sums it up beautifully, I think.
Right.
So they're both not a very auspicious start from the lovely ladies, none for 2. Let's see if they did any better in this one. Blues v Crusaders, the big rugby match over the weekend. What did the lovely Michelle go for?
Well, against popular opinion in this house anyway, much to my chagrin, Michelle decided to go for the Blues, and her comment was that they're giving it a good challenge at the moment.
Oh, I like it. I like her thinking. I don't know what the hell our wives were thinking, because my wife went the exact opposite. She went with the Crusaders. She knows I'm a Blues fan, so I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but one of them got it right. She got that one. She said the Crusaders because they've always been the best, and I still think the Blues can improve. So there you go. That's very
cool.
good thinking. I would have. Yeah. So she's won. Michelle still to get on the board. I think we're giving them a half a point for the draw, aren't we?
Yes,
Because
yes.
So we'll give Charisse 1.5, Michelle 1. Hurricanes versus the Highlanders. What did Michelle have?
Yes, Michelle went for the home team on this occasion, went for the Highlanders, the Hurricanes, I should say, given that we are now living in the Hurricanes region. So went for the home team and came up trumps with that pick. Of course, the Hurricanes getting through over the Highlanders yesterday.
Yeah, they did the business. Charisse also went for the Hurricanes. She said just because she thinks they're better.
Fair enough.
Good reasoning. So she's on 2.5. Michelle's on 1.5. And the final game was the AFL. I wouldn't have had a bloody clue myself. Carlton versus the Bulldogs. And I'll tell you what, though, you give a woman 2 teams. One of them has an animal in the title. They'll always go for the animal. Charisse went for the Bulldogs. She said it was a stab in the dark. Didn't have a clue.
As did Michelle. She went for the Bulldogs. Her comment was, "Have heard the name, so they're probably doing a bit better." So, yes, Carlton winning that one by about 50 points. So, a big win for the
103.
Carlton Blues.
So, after the first week, tally up the points. I think Charisse is on 2.5. Early lead, Michelle on 1.5. So, There you go. That's the Wives Fives for this week. They've got a chance to add to those scores next week. We'll have 5 more sporting contests for them to give us their picks in. Okay, so should we move on to our top 5?
Yes, time for the Greyfriars Motel top 5. And this week, we've decided to go for our top 5 favourite footballers of all time. So rather than who we think are the top 5 footballers of all time, we've gone for the favourites. So I might kick it off this week with my number 5.
Go on.
And he's a good Scouse boy. Nicknamed
I think there's going to be a few on the list.
Nicknamed God by the supporters on the Cop. When he first signed his first contract for Liverpool, his name, he was going by his mother's name at the time. So he was Little Robbie Ryder at the time. But that all changed when he became a bit more well-known. And we know him as Robbie Fowler. God, 266 appearances over 2 spells for Liverpool with 128 goals, and overall 460 appearances and 186 goals. Only played 26 times for England, which is a bit of a surprise, and scoring just 7 goals. So Robbie Fowler's my 5. Is he in your top 5, or are we just going straight on to your number 5?
No, mate, of course he's in my top 5. He's actually my number 2. My number 2. That's how high I rate this guy, mate. God, the ultimate predator, that lethal left foot. He was the finisher extraordinaire at Liverpool. Like you said, he scored 186 goals in total for Liverpool. Only 7 goals for England. Now, his England career was cut short basically because there was one Alan Shearer playing for England at the time, wasn't it? There were so many good strikers playing for England back then. So he missed out. He should have been capped more for England, but what a player that guy was. Number 9 on his back, and still love that goal celebration where he did that as well. Never to be forgotten. The ultimate predator, number 9, Robbie Fowler. God,
he was just recreating a dance of Rigobert songs.
Oh, exactly. That's exactly what he was doing. And when he was asked about that relatively recently, they sort of said, look, you did some crazy stuff, and do you regret any of that? What about that time you did that and you got suspended 6 times? He said, no way, I regret that. One of my proudest moments of my career. So yeah, I love the guy as well, and also the fact that he's a Scouse bred and born, and he's also a bit of a left-leaning liberal socialist. I like that, man. I like the cut of his jib, just like Bill Shankly was.
Yes, and most recently has been coaching out in Australia in the A-League for Brisbane.
Unfortunately, not coming back though, is he?
No, he's not.
Well, not this year anyway. No. So Robbie Fowler, what a player, mate. Number 9 on his back, loved him. God, he's my number 2. He's your number 5. So maybe I'll go for number 4 next. Shall I go for number 4? Because there's going to be some crossover. I know there is. Let's go for my number 5. Sorry, my number 5. Another Liverpool player. I know you're just going to have to put up with it, all you non-Liverpool fans. This guy, in his 10 seasons at Liverpool, he won the top flight First Division twice, the FA Cup twice. Probably should have got more medals, really, for his quality. He scored 106 goals in 403 matches. And by the time of his last cap in 1995, he had more caps than any other black English player. In 2016, the Times voted him England's greatest ever left-footed player. I loved Digger. What a player he was. He was named after the character Digger Barnes, of course, in the American soap opera Dallas, John Barnes. The way he used to elegantly glide past players and with the ball like super glued to his foot. And he could pick a pass better than anyone I'd ever seen. And that rocket of the left foot, the man had it all. Should have been capped more times for England once more. I remember that time he came on. Was it the game against Argentina? He scored the goal or made the goal, and should have been on from the start.
Gary Lineker.
Yeah, John Barnes, my number 5. What a player.
Number 5. Wow, what a cracking player. And all things going well, I'm hoping to be able to meet the man in November later on this year. He's
amazing.
Supposedly coming out to Wellington and Auckland if you get the chance with Cop Mania. So can't wait to hopefully meet up with John Digger Barnes. My number 4, he was born with the name Arthur Antunes Coimbra in Brazil, commonly known as Zico. Zico, one of my favourite all-time players of the 80s. Just a fantastic footballer. He was just an incredible player, and he played till well late into his 30s at the very top level. So just an incredible player, Zico. 405 top appearances with 240 goals for an attacking midfielder. That's not a bad record.
Yeah, crazy.
Zico, one of the great Brazilians from the 1980s. His play in the 1982 World Cup was just unbelievable. It's a shame the rest of the team didn't match up to his standards, and of course played against the All Whites in the 1982 World Cup. So just an incredible player, and he's number 4 on my list.
No, he was number 10. But anyway, number 4 on your list, yes. But what a player Zico was, and also he also had the standard 1970s haircut, didn't he? The old curly locks. Love Zico. Great player. Okay, my number 4. I've gone for New Zealand for this one because, of course, it's our heroes. New Zealand's captain fantastic during the epic campaign, the World Cup finals, 1982, and the wearer of one of the most magnificent sporting moustaches in history, Steve Sumner. Absolutely loved him. He was a competitive attacking midfielder, played 105 games for the All Whites over 12 years, scored 27 goals, and his feats for the All Whites were recognised when he was inducted into the New Zealand Soccer Hall of Fame. He received FIFA's highest honour, the Order of Merit, in 2010. On the back of his FIFA Centennial Merit Award in 2004, he was made an official Order of New Zealand Merit. And but in terms of football, man, nothing could manage that 15-game 1982 World Cup qualification. Nothing will quite match it, the way that the All Whites took football to New Zealand by storm. Rugby mad New Zealand, of course, and him, John Adson, and Kevin Fallon, I think, were the three faces of the whole campaign. And he was just an amazing guy as well off the field. He was an executive board for the Wellington Phoenix. He was a pundit. He was a media guy. And he was just so keen for the sport. Great guy on and off the field. And what a player and a leader. I just love the guy. And, of course, and then he got prostate cancer. And all he wanted to do was tell everyone, you got to get checked. And, yeah, just a quality individual. He's my fourth favourite footballer of all time, the mighty Steve Sumner.
Marvellous indeed. Yes, a great player in his day, and as you say, admirably steered the ship on the field in that build up to the 1982 World Cup and the World Cup itself. And had a great club career too. Played pretty much most of his football in New Zealand. Did have a spell in Australia in the National Soccer League over there, but largely played all his football in New Zealand. A great player, and of course in Christchurch at their main football ground at English Park is the main grandstand is obviously named in his honour.
That's right.
That's right. A true tribute to a true footballing man.
He was.
Number 3 on my list.
Go on.
He had a turn named after him, the Cruyff turn. Johan Cruyff, the Dutch master. Just another amazing attacking midfield player. Could play up front or in the midfield, could create, could score. 562 first-team appearances for the likes of Ajax, Barcelona, 323 goals. Another attacking midfielder that just scored goals for fun and went on to be a great manager as well for Barcelona. And who can forget his performances in the 1974 World Cup? They fell short in the final against West Germany, but he received the Player of the Tournament trophy in that tournament, and just an amazing player. And I've watched videos of him play, and I reckon he'd be just as good in today's game as he was back in the late 60s and early 70s. And of course, when he was with Ajax, they won the European Cup 3 years in a row from 1971, 72, and 73. So just an amazing player. So he's my number 3.
Yeah, absolutely amazing guy, Johan Cruyff. And the thing with him is that he's actually, echoes of what he did during his career come through to the modern day football as well. Because you look at someone like Pep Guardiola, he was a student of Johan Cruyff, and the tiki-taka football that they played in the 90s and early 2000s and all the way through the 2000s, even up to today, is all based around his philosophies. And as far as a coach, he was absolutely phenomenal as well. But as a player, almost unparalleled and unpaired. I mean, obviously, Maradona was around at the same time, so there was a couple of other great players, but he'd have to be in your. I mean, if you made a first 11, all-time first 11 of the most talented players, he'd definitely be there. Amazing player. What a player. And, okay, for my number 3, I'm going to for New Zealand again, mate. I'm going to for New Zealand again. Another footballer in New Zealand. He spent more than a decade of his professional career in Switzerland and Germany, achieving his greatest success at Werder Bremen, of course, where he won a total of 4 major titles and finished as the top scorer in the UEFA Champions League in 1993-94. Unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of that, did we? Because we didn't get it on telly back in the day. But maybe New Zealanders might have had a more fond, remembrance of exactly what he did in his club career. But I'll always remember what he did for New Zealand when he made his first appearance in 1982 when he scored those goals. He was just an incredible player. As a 17-year-old, he played for New Zealand. Actually, just turned 18, hadn't he, against the Kuwait, and he scored in that 2-2 draw in 1982, and then he quickly established himself in that side. Later, He netted the winning goal against China in our World Cup playoff. Played
What a goal it was too.
Oh, wasn't it? And I think did the ball? Yeah, it never touched the ground, did it? From the keeper.
No.
The keeper kicked it. It nodded on the halfway line, came to him, hit it on the volley, top corner. Absolutely incredible goal. What a player he was. Winston Rufer scored 213 goals in 522 professional matches. That's up there with anyone, mate. That's a phenomenal record. And of course, he played all 3 games at that World Cup against Scotland, Soviet Union, and Brazil. What a player he was, mate. Winston Rufer, my player number 3.
He's a fine choice there, Mahona. Winston Rufer certainly is. He'd probably have to be named as the greatest ever New Zealand football player, even on in a top 5 or top 10 of that were actually top players rather than just our favourites. But moving on, right. My number 2,
go on.
Got his shirt sitting up behind me, the big number 7, signed by the great Kenneth Dalglish. Kenny Dalglish, an absolute hero, Sir Kenny Dalglish now, of course, and has a stand named after him at Anfield on the opposite side to the main stand. Kenny Dalglish started his career at Celtic, 204 games, 112 goals. Then he moved to Liverpool in 1977, 355 games, 118 goals, but probably made just as many goals as assists than that 118. And for his beloved Scotland, 102 caps for Scotland, scoring 30 times. Never quite recreated his club form for Scotland, unfortunately, but boy, what a great player. At the time, and it's probably still true, is the only player to score 100 goals for one club in Scotland and over 100 goals for one club in England. And so just an absolutely incredible player. And back in 1977, when Kevin Keegan announced he was leaving Liverpool, I actually did think at the time, man, if we could get that Dalglish from Scotland, from Celtic, that would be an absolute coup. And sure enough, £440,000 at the time was a massive transfer fee.
That's like 1 week's wages now.
Yeah, quite right. So yes, the King Kenny is my number 2.
Yeah, well, there's a reason they called him King. You know, he was just a phenomenal player, and of course, his partnership with Ian Rush was something to behold. And I can't say enough about the guy. The reason I didn't put him in my top 5 because I knew you'd have him in the top 5. I knew it'd be your 1 or 2, and I just thought, I love the guy as well. But there can only be number 1 for me. There can only be one number 1, and he probably matches my age a little bit better. And I saw everything he did from the first game all the way to his final game. He was born in Whiston in Merseyside. He made his senior debut for Liverpool in 1998. And in 2001, he helped Liverpool secure that unprecedented treble of cups. And, of course, he was given the captaincy in 2003. You know who I'm talking about, mate.
I do.
You do. Our number 8, our great captain, Stevie G, Steven Gerrard. They can say he slipped on his ass all they bloody want, mate. It does not deter anything from me. The guy just basically pulled our team kicking and screaming all the way through. And all those trophies, just about every single trophy we won during his period of captaincy, he had something to do with, whether it was scoring the goals, making the goals, or making other players better. He was just amazing, especially that 2005 Champions League final, of course, 3-0 down against Milan. He pulled them up, he grabbed them, and he led us to victory. Amazing. And of course, and then the FA Cup final, then the following year, he did the same thing.
Yeah.
Cramping in the last minute and smashed that ball past Shaka Hislop for 3-3, and 2 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, a UEFA Champions League, UEFA Cup, an FA Community Shield, UEFA Super Cup, 17 seasons at Anfield. Amazing player. What a player he was. Our captain, fantastic. Number 8, Stevie G. He's right. Number 1.
Right. I did leave him out of my top 5 because I was pretty sure that you would have him in there. For my number 5, it was a really, really tight argument between him and Robbie Fowler, but I went for Robbie, and of course we both had him as you had him as your number 2.
Just a quick note, Macca. Just a quick note before we get to your number 1.
Yep.
Not very happy with Steven Gerrard becoming manager of a club I dislike intensely, Rangers in Scotland. But there is a rumor floating around today. Have you seen this?
I haven't.
That
No.
he may be leaving Rangers and could be the new manager of Bristol City. Apparently he's been interviewed and could be a go. So just keep an eye out for that. By the time we speak next, he could be manager of Bristol City, which would be very interesting.
He could very well be.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, my number one, this guy. I really just don't know where to start. 812 games, 757 goals at an average of 0.93 goals per match. He was born Edson Arantes de Nascimento. Of course, I'm talking about the great Pelé. I never saw him play in an actual game, but I've seen plenty of videos of him. I've read his book. Just an incredible, incredible career, playing his entire career for Santos in Brazil. But yeah, he was obviously much better known playing for the mighty Brazil in their halcyon days. Won the World Cup first as a teenager in 1962, then won it again in 1970, and just wow, what a player!
Yeah.
What a there's plenty of people, mainly a bit younger than me, who claim that Maradona is the better player, but I'm sorry, Maradona's just a cheat. And so I can't pick, even if we were picking our top 10 top players of all time, I'd probably still leave Maradona out. He was a really good player, but I just couldn't bring myself to pick him. Much like probably Cristiano Ronaldo as well.
I hear you. I've got it. We'll get there. What can you say about Pelé? I think the whole thing with Pelé is that the passage of time hasn't been that kind to him. I think when Maradona came along, everyone sort of just jumped on that bandwagon. All the older people, all the people from my dad's generation, probably your, just the generation before, they all said, nah, Pelé's still number one. Pelé's like the Bradman of, no one will ever be better than Pelé. And Maradona did some amazing things. I still haven't seen that documentary. It looks amazing on Maradona. The thing is, he was a cheat, but he used to get hacked down like no one's business as well. I love Maradona as well. But like you say, for me, I suppose personally, the number one, the held up god of football will always be Pelé as well. He'll always be number one. I don't think anyone will ever be able to beat him. I mean, unless someone comes along like Messi and does it in the World Cup as well. That's the only way. If Messi had won 3 or 4 World Cups, we could probably say that he was the greatest as well. But, he hasn't done it in the World Cup, so it's hard to say. Anyway, great choice for the number one, mate. I'm glad we mentioned him. Have you got any honourable mentions? I bet you got heaps.
Oh, Leo Messi, you just touched on him. He's just scored his 700th club goal recently, so that's a pretty incredible feat for a player like that. And of course, you mentioned him at great length. Steven Gerrard, John Barnes is another honourable mention. Probably one of my favourite non-Liverpool players that played for a long time in the Premier League, Alan Shearer. I loved watching Alan Shearer play. He wasn't really what you would. He was a bit like Robbie Fowler. You couldn't say he was a great footballer, but boy, could he score a goal! And
what
goals he scored from outside the penalty area were just incredible.
Unbelievable.
Goalkeeping wise, I've always loved watching Ray Clements in my early years of watching football.
Absolutely,
he was a very good
Jennings,
goalkeeper. And even Peter Shilton was a great goalkeeper too, who played into his 40s. Was a very, very good keeper. And probably of the current crop, Manuel Neuer is a very good goalkeeper. And I also love watching Thomas Muller play. He's one of my...
you do love him, don't you?
He'd be in my top 10 if we were picking a top 10. Just love Thomas Muller.
Yeah.
And, have followed his career closely since he burst onto the scene in the 2008 European Championships. I think he first onto the scene and had a great couple of World Cups, 2010 and 2014. So, love me.
He's a funny one.
A bit of Thomas Muller.
He's a funny one, Thomas Muller, isn't he? Because he never seems to be doing anything expertly or brilliantly, but he just does everything well, and he doesn't seem to run fast, doesn't seem to, he's a weird player. I do like him though. Okay, my honourable mentions, I had Kenny Dalglish, of course. I had Kevin Keegan, of course. Graham
Oh, Mighty
Souness. I
Mouse.
used to love Graham Souness in the midfield. He was sort of like our Roy Keane, I guess, in the 70s. Loved the way he was just two-footed tackles. Peter Beardsley. Used to love little Peter Beardsley. I used to love him. I also used to love Steve Nicol before he started commentating. I don't like him he's a bloody whinger, but as a player, what a player. Fernando Torres and Luis Suarez, of course, two mighty strikers for Liverpool in the 2000s. And of course, number one was Carragher. Number two was Carragher. Yeah, all of the team. We all dream of a team of Carragers. Jamie Carragher, what a player. And then New Zealand players, I had Brian Turner, Steve Wooden, Grant Turner. Oh, I love Grant Turner. Duncan Cole, Richard Wilson. Should have played in the World Cup. Missed out on all three games. Felt sorry for him. And Ryan Nelson and Winston Reid, of course. And then I had Pelé, Maradona. I did give him an honourable mention. Johan Cruyff, Zico, Socrates, Messi, Iniesta. And even from the scum, because I thought, there might be some Manchester United crazy masochists listening somewhere. From the scum, George Best, Roy Keane, and Eric Cantona. Loved all of those guys. For me, no Cristiano Ronaldo for me. Wouldn't be anywhere near it. He's a selfish prat. And the prancing pony, don't like him. And as evidence by his penalty shootout theatrics the other day, where I said, I'm going to take the fifth one. They didn't even get to the fifth one. That made me laugh. And Michael Owen isn't on there. Nowhere near it either.
No, quite right.
Even though I did used to love him when he was playing for Liverpool, but then he took off.
Yeah, quite right. While we're talking about great footballers, we should probably mention the passing of the great Jack Charlton over the weekend.
Absolutely.
R.I.P. Big Jackie, or as the Geordies used to call him, War Jackie. 773 games for Leeds United. What an absolute stalwart of that club. Yep. He didn't play for England until he was 30. He was 31 when they won the World Cup. Of course, playing alongside his younger brother, Bobby. And a great quote I saw on the news last night was from Jack Charlton. He said, "My brother can play, I can't. I can stop people playing, but I can't play."
I also heard Gary Lineker did a little bit about him, and he said he was playing against him for England, and he said he used to always stop and have a chat to him, and he said, "Oh, you're one that fell through the cracks." When he was managing for Ireland. Yes. And Gary Lineker said, I don't think I've got any Irish blood in me, Jack. My dad used to fish in Ireland like once a year. We could have made it work, Gary. We could have made it work. So yeah, he was just everyone talks about him in the warmest regard. Absolutely. I think that's what they said. He was kind and warm, even though you wouldn't know it on the field. What a defender he was, and what a manager he was, and just a great man, and rest in peace, mate. What a great football man.
Transformed football in Ireland.
He did.
You hear comments from the likes of Paul McGrath, who played under him for Ireland, and Ronnie Whelan, just said he transformed their team the very first training session he took for the Republic of Ireland. And of course, who can forget their performances at the 1990 World Cup, beating Italy at what was then Giant Stadium. And making finals, just unbelievable. And great football man. And another one, sadly, of the 1966 team that has passed. So there's only a few left now. So
I know
it was a long time ago. Anyway, let's carry on the football talk. And Liverpool dropping their first points at home on the weekend with a 1-1 draw at Burnley against Burnley. But it's hard to say whether, they're fully in it, with these games. I mean, normally when you've won the championship or the premiership early, you've got other games that are important as well. So you keep that focus. But for Liverpool, these are just end of season friendlies, really, aren't they?
They are a bit, mate. It's sort of more planning for next year, letting some of the younger guys play. I'm enjoying watching some of the younger guys play. Nico Williams looks like he could be a player for us. Curtis Jones, of course, we've talked about him before. For us, it's really it's just about next year, I guess. But where it's really getting on, it's the bottom of the league is where it's all happening. The bottom four don't go into 3. Norwich are gone. They've already been confirmed, relegated. They lost to West Ham 4-0. What a way to go down, losing 4-0 to a David Moyes side. But on your way to the championship, mate. You don't deserve to be anywhere near it. So either Bournemouth, Watford, or Villa are going to go down with them. Now, all three of those sides had great wins over the weekend. Great win for Villa this morning against Palace. That may be maybe enough. I'm not sure. They finished with fixtures against Everton, Arsenal, and West Ham. Bournemouth also had a great win, 4-1 against Leicester. Who saw that coming? And they've got games against Man City, Southampton, and Everton. And Watford won 2-1 against Newcastle, and they finished with West Ham, Man City, and Arsenal. So all of those, I got no idea. I thought Bournemouth were gone, but they won this morning. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking Bournemouth probably are Watford or Villa. Which one of those two? Watford or Villa?
I think it's probably going to be Villa. I think the bottom three will stay the same, even though Villa did get up for a win this morning. They just are struggling big time. And I think Watford and West Ham, even though they're only 3 points ahead now of Bournemouth, who have now had 2 games where they haven't lost in a row. They had a draw during the week against Spurs and their win over the weekend. You know, they're fighting hard. Maybe they will get up, but I still can't see it. I think Bournemouth and Villa are joining Norwich. But the championship is really coming down to the wire now. We've got Leeds had a win overnight, an 89th minute winner by Pablo Hernandez against his former club Swansea, paying tribute to Jackie Charlton in that game. Leeds and West Brom have pretty much sewn up the top 2 spots, the automatic promotion spots, and you'd have to say that Brentford and Fulham are probably safe in the top 2 playoff spots. They're on 78 and 76 points respectively. And there's a 7-point gap back to fifth, where Nottingham Forest are on 69, Cardiff on 64, Swansea on 63, Preston on 62, Millwall on 62,
that's crazy.
Derby on 61, Bristol on 61, Blackburn on 60. So
that is nuts.
The 12th, it's 4 points with 3 games to go. So
one result against a rival, you're up the table. It's nuts. Yeah, it's a crazy. Crazy situation.
As I say, Forest and Cardiff just holding on. Well, Forest look relatively safe. They're on 69. And there's a 5-point gap back to Cardiff, who have then got another 4 teams just hammering them at the heels. So you could probably say Forest may be safe in one of those playoff spots as well, but that 4th playoff spot, that could be anybody's.
As my old mate Gibbo would say, you never say Forest is safe, mate. You never say Forest is safe. Honestly, they are so good at grabbing defeat from the jaws of victory. Okay, so that's the football. What about the NRL, mate?
Hang on a sec. Before we leave the football, just one result of note in Auckland over the weekend. The mighty Mount Albert Ponsonby travelled over the bridge to Albany, and they had a 2-1 victory. The mighty MAP with my mate Paul Colgate as the assistant coach there. So a good win for Mount Albert, and they've started off the season with a hiss and a roar. They're 4 from 4 and top of the table. So go the
I can imagine. Absolutely, I can imagine if PC's the assistant coach there that there'll be all sorts of court. I can imagine the court sessions will be kind of hard, kind of taxing, should I say? He's a good man, old PC though. He's a good man.
He certainly is.
Happy birthday. What are we doing?
Rugby league.
NRL. Let's go to the rugby league. Okay. Thursday, Cowboys 16, Roosters 42. My God, those Roosters are on fire, mate. Ikuvalu comes in for the injured Brett Morris. Scores 5 tries, mate. 5
What is
tries.
he, a plumber or something?
Ikuvalu.
Isn't he a plumber or something, an apprentice plumber?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. 5 tries. They get rid of one Australian winger and they bring in another guy and he scores 5 tries. The Roosters have just got so much depth. I don't know who's going to challenge them, mate. They're not top of the table, of course. They had a bit of a wobble early season, so but they are just looking so good. And then on Friday, the Titans 16, the Warriors 12. We went out wearing those Bush shirts, mate, and it looked like early on we're having Titans for dinner. Bursting out to a 12-0 lead, courtesy of tries to Roger and Ken, but then it all started going wrong when Jack Hetherington, who I like the look of, he's on loan from the Panthers, big athletic rangy second rower. He was denied a try when the bunker ruled that he'd pushed Fogarty before scoring after a loose Bryce Cartwright pass. And this was the most pathetic call by the officials all weekend, mate. Honestly, even all the Aussie Pro Titans commentary team, they all said so. They could not understand why it wasn't a try. Two guys going for the ball. You're not allowed to nudge each other, apparently. It's a game of netball. So, it was ridiculous. No try. The penalty count was 6-0. I've never rated that ref. He was reffing by himself. Didn't see forward passes. I mean, I've heard people say, look, the Warriors just need to stop complaining about the refs. But if this isn't a game where you can complain about the ref, then none of them are, mate. The guy was bloody hopeless. Anyway, we'll take a loss. I'm certainly used to them, and we'll move on. Next week, we've got the Sharks. But after the Sharks, there is talk that Ken Mamalo, David Pusitua, and Ignatius Party may be returning to New Zealand. It will be interesting to see. Are they going to run out on their teammates? Who knows? It's going to be, as if the Warriors need that. Then the Rabbits, 18, Tigers, 10, Sharks, 24, Panthers, 56. The Panthers as well on fire. A guy called Charlie Staines. 4 tries on debut. Not bad from old Charlie. Broncos got a win finally, 26-8 against the hapless Bulldogs, who are hopeless at the moment. Raiders 14, Storm 20. They just keep rolling on the Storm. Knights 4, Eels 10. Low-scoring game yesterday. And the final game last night, which really, I did not see this one coming. Massive upset. Dragons 34, Sea Eagles 4. That was crazy. So the ladder at the moment, top 8. Eels, Panthers, Storm, Roosters, Knights, Rabbits, Raiders, Tigers. Eels way out in front. Warriors sitting 13th on 6 points. They're only 2 points, though, out of the 8. So a couple of wins.
There you go.
We could still be into the 8, mate. So there you go. That's all that's happening in the NRL. So we'll move on to the other code, shall we?
Super Rugby. Wow. It was a test match on Saturday night, wasn't it?
It was, mate.
The quality of rugby in that game was just unbelievable. And I've got to be honest, I was a bit nervous at halftime when the Blues had the lead. But sure enough, the Crusaders just kicked into gear. And I think there were 3 moments in that second half that just turned that game around on its heels. And one of them was directly after Rico Ioane had just scored his try, when Braden Enna got out to charge down the conversion.
I think that was the moment.
Absolutely lightning. That moment turned it around. And then, of course, the kickoff, Richie Mo'unga. Just dribbled the ball.
And we didn't see.
10 yards. Nobody knew what the heck was going on. It was
even the producer.
And nearly produced a try, but just a couple of minutes later, he slung that pass out wide to George Bridge, who beat his man on the outside, and just fed it back to Mitchell Drummond to go over near the sticks. And that put the Crusaders in the lead for the first time in the game. And, of course, finished off by the mercurial Will Jordan, who came off the bench. Unbelievable.
Had to be him, didn't it?
In the Crusaders side, when somebody like Will Jordan sitting on the bench for the first 60 minutes of the game. So, an absolute test match. Give credit to the Blues. They played very well, and were probably a little unlucky in the end. I thought there were a couple of penalties went against them that, were 50-50. I've just got to try and shut my ears when Justin Marshall's prattling on. But anyway,
he was dead right, though, about that one.
No, I disagreed with him.
Talking about the one where the guy was pinned at the bottom of the ruck.
Yeah, you've got to get out of the way as soon as you possibly can, or not make the tackle in that direction. Because if they
had the ball,
if they changed the law, everybody would just say, "Oh, but I couldn't get out of there." So you've got to have some sort of penalty.
The ref has to use discretion. They had the ball.
He does.
Let them play.
He does, but if you're getting trapped in there and the Crusaders can't, or any team can't clear the ball, it's not just I've always
obvious bias. You're showing a very obvious bias.
No, I'm saying if the tackler, doesn't matter what game it is, whether it's the Chiefs, the Hurricanes, the Highlanders, the Blues, the Brumbies, whoever, if the player tackling doesn't get out of the way, it's got to be a penalty, because otherwise everybody would do it.
I would agree with you if the guy was doing it and he was stopping the ball coming out. He made the tackle. He was on the bottom. There were 2 guys on him. He was holding his own. He was trying to roll away. He said, "You didn't roll away." Well, I just think the the ball was there for the halfback to clear. Just let him play. But anyway, well, beg to differ. Honestly, this is why I like rugby league. I just want the ball. Get him out there. Get it out there.
Good continuity, son. Continuity.
Anyway,
but a great game. And
it was a great game.
And
26-15 was the final score.
And I think the last game of the season, whether or not it's going to be a title decider, Blues have a couple of bonus points to make up on the Crusaders if they want to have any chance of winning it, because you just can't see the Crusaders being beaten by the other three sides.
No, you can't.
So if they need to turn that last game of the round at Eden Park into a decider, they're going to have to find some bonus points somewhere. But great game.
It was a great game.
The Hurricanes Highlanders game started out with a couple of interesting obstruction calls, which ruled out tries for both sides. Not quite sure on those ones, but Hurricanes showed their true mettle and come away deserving victors. I think it was 17-11 was the final score.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Not a bad game. I saw most of it, and I thought the Hurricanes were probably the better team on the day.
I think they were. I think they were the better team. What I noticed from that game though is how quiet the crowd was. I was like, most of the post COVID, everyone's been so happy to be out, and it just seemed like, I don't know, the last maybe decade or so, that stadium seems to have lost a lot of atmosphere. I was there maybe 10 years ago for the Sevens, and it was just rocking, and it just seems like, is it the stadium? Is it the people in Wellington? I don't know. It just seems like no one really seemed to be too keen. It just seemed flat. But anyway, maybe because of the game the night before, you're in front of Christchurch where they're always rabid, and the game was so good the night before. So maybe it was just that. Anyway, the Crusaders sit on top, don't they? Unbeaten, 18 points, 4 from 4. Blues 3 from 4 on 12 points, are in second. And then we've got the Hurricanes on 8, the Highlanders on 6, and the poor old Chiefs down the bottom only on 3. I think they've all got one more round robin, isn't that right? And then
one more round robin. I'll be back. I'll be down at the stadium next week to watch the Hurricanes host the Blues, so I'm looking forward to that. I'll try and rack the crowd up for you, Aaron, and going a bit noisier. So, and of course, Australian rugby is underway with their own Super Rugby Australia competition with the Reds, the Waratahs, the Brumbies, the Rebels, and they brought the Force back. So good to see the Western Force back playing Super Rugby again. So haven't really followed it too closely. I think you can probably safely say the Brumbies will be the favourites in that competition. They did notice on the back page last week that it was good to see at least 2 Australian sides winning in the first week because they're not used to that in the normal Super Rugby competition. And the good thing is that an Australian side will definitely win that competition. So but the future of Super Rugby, there's been some leaked reports about kicking the South Africans and the Argentinians into touch and just having a Trans-Tasman competition with a Pacific Island side. And I think it's a very good idea.
Take it every day of the week, mate.
Yeah, comments from the likes of former All Blacks coach Steve Hansen, who says we don't owe Australia anything. So it'll be interesting to see what does come out, and that's all come out of the report that was commissioned before COVID struck. So when Super Rugby started on the 31st of January, I was a bit critical of the rugby authorities starting the game that early. It was just ridiculous having rugby on the 31st of January. Just stupid. So we'll wait and see what happens if anything comes out of it, and if they do kick the South Africans to touch already. There's 2 South African teams playing in the English competition. The I can't remember the name of it. That's the Pro 14. With the Scottish, Welsh, and Irish sides. So they've got the Cheetahs and the Southern Kings both playing in that competition.
So when Hansen said that he thinks we don't owe Aussie anything, is he talking about what's his?
Well, I think he's alluding to the fact he'd rather see us just carry on with with what we've got now. Just have our own Super Rugby competition, and then maybe the two two champions meet up for an overall final. But I think
yeah.
he's very much in favour of a Heineken Cup type competition that they have in Europe. So I think what they were looking at in the early days of this, with it being Trans-Tasman, you'd play, so the New Zealand sides would play home and away against the New Zealand sides, and just one game against all the Australian teams. And then, I'm not sure what.
Yeah, see, I hate it when there's conferences. I just want one table. I want it nice and easy to understand. If they were going to do it like Super Rugby Aotearoa, where I don't think 5 teams is enough. I think what we need to do, can't we just go provincial again? I mean, I know that they're not set up to be professional. I know there's some work around that, but we've got these existing provincial unions that have so much history and passion in New Zealand. Surely we can harness that somehow. Like, I don't know, Steve Hansen's, him and people with far better rugby minds than the two of us could put their heads together and come up with an idea where we could have promotion, relegation, maybe 2 divisions, and just have that running every year as an aside to, I'd rather have that. I don't know. It'd be great to get back to the old Canterbury, Auckland games and the hoops. And I know that may be me looking back nostalgically, but it's also, it's needs must at the moment. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm a big fan of Super Rugby because I believe it produces the best product. With the National Provincial Championship, I think the competition gets a bit diluted and you don't see the quality of a game at NPC level than you do at Super Rugby level. Obviously, with NPC over the last 15, 20 years, the competition has been diluted of its best players because that's when the All Blacks play their main competition. So you don't see All Blacks playing in that. It might be a bit different with with All Blacks playing in that competition full time. I don't know, but I like seeing the 5 best teams. I would like to see a Trans-Tasman competition with 5 teams from each country and a couple of Pacific Island teams, or even maybe the Sunwolves and 1 Pacific Island team.
Yeah, that could work, man. And then they have a round robin, play 11 games each? I mean, what's wrong with that? And then a semi-finals and a final. I mean,
and if the facilities aren't good enough in the islands, while
they can play them in Auckland,
they can play them at North Harbour or Mount Smart.
Absolutely.
And, have 1 or 2 games, maybe 1 in Fiji and 1 in Samoa during the season, and just build that up from there. So a 12-team competition. You could play home and away, and if you wanted to have finals at the end of it, all well and good. If not, just whoever's the best at the top of the table at the end of the competition wins. I've always been a fan of that. I've never been a fan of playoffs. So
beautiful. Best idea I've heard. I think you've just solved all the problems, mate. NZR, if you get on the phone to this man, he's got all the answers for you. And mate, I'd watch it. So there you go. There's
quite
a
right
endorsement from me. There you go.
Any other sport we got to from you?
Not really. American sport. Anything going on over there? God, I don't know whether anything is going to go over here.
Still in holding.
I know.
Baseball have started their camps, so they're in camp playing games against each other.
I noticed that FC Dallas had a couple of they've pulled out completely from their MLS. They've got a bubble going on over there as well, don't they? But the whole team pulled out because they had too many cases of COVID. I just don't know how American sport is really going to get on it. I mean, when you look at what's going on in society, it's just COVID is just rampant over there. I mean, especially with crowds. I mean, it's just not going to happen with crowds for at least 12 months. So
nothing's changed since last week. So I think we'll just skip over American sport for now.
All right, mate. Yeah, skip over America.
Quite right.
Okay. So how are we finishing this week, mate? You got anything?
It's a topic I've been talking about a lot recently in podcasts. So I'll rip into it. It's well known that I've been advocating for a change in the sport funding model currently in place in New Zealand, where the government body Sport New Zealand hands out funding to national sports bodies for both grassroots and high-performance sport, and it is well overdue for an overhaul. As recently as last week, sports bodies believe the $80 million the Labor government is handing out after COVID is just not going to get to the right areas. At the moment, sport organisations are struggling big time with a lack of gaming funding being available after venues were obviously shut down for 6 or 7 weeks during lockdown. So there's no money to hand out. which since the government banned cigarette and alcohol sponsorship by foundations and trusts. So organisations such as John Walker Field of Dreams, which is based in South Auckland, believe that with all the funding being distributed by the regional sports trusts, it's going to be swallowed up by the bigger mainstream sports as usual and not go to fringe bodies such as them and other well-known groups, along with smaller sports who live on the smell of an oily rag. In 2019, Sport New Zealand handed out close to $95 million to national sporting organisations for grassroots and high-performance areas. And if you've not won a medal at Olympics or Commonwealth Games or World Championships, you can forgo any hope of getting any dosh from that bucket. It's all gone to rowing, canoeing, athletics, rugby and cycling, with smaller sums to yachting, equestrian and any other sport or athlete that medals at the big events. After 1984, when canoeing won 4 medals and again 2 more in Seoul in 1988, they've received bugger all in HP funding until Lisa Carrington came along. Now I'm guessing they'll be fairly flush. How they managed to survive in the meantime is an amazing achievement without serious funding from Sport New Zealand, along with many other sports like basketball, tennis, squash, baseball, etc., who struggle hugely to make ends meet. As a former employee at Baseball New Zealand, we received a total of $80,000 for grassroots baseball, and that was spread over a 4-year period. So $80,000 a year, a pretty pathetic handout for a sport that provides athletes with the opportunity to get a college education and play professionally, and forget any high performance funding. Without the support over the years of gaming foundations and the like, there would be no baseball in this country. While men's softball, a sport where you go nowhere in, much like netball, received over $600,000 in 2017 just because they won a world championship. There's a reason why a country as New Zealand can win so many men's softball world championships. We're the only country that takes the men's game seriously. So, the solution. There are roughly 80 sports bodies who are eligible to receive funding from Sport New Zealand, and its grassroots funding is solely based on numbers registered playing. It's fairly easy to boost your playing numbers by adding in children who have been introduced to a sport through their school. For example, baseball has about 2,000 registered players across the country, but has been introduced and played by about another 6,500 kids in schools. So it can justifiably say baseball is played by over 8,500 people. And I'm sure other sports do this to boost numbers. How about we forget the numbers, give each of the 80 sports a base rate of $100,000 each year. So that comes to $8 million. Then what you do with the remaining $87 million is numbers you can dish out in numbers-based funding for sports and specific programs developed by the likes of Special Olympics, YMCA, etc. For sports such as baseball, tennis, squash, etc., $100,000 each year would go a heck of a long way to providing stability and much needed support for them. With regards to high performance funding, yes, if you medal at a Games or World Championship, you deserve funding. But what about investing in potential? We have plenty of young athletes who excel at youth and age grade sports, but fall by the wayside because of a lack of funding in their future. So a different perspective on how sports funding should be done, and hopefully we can start to see an even more potential coming out of our minor sports.
No, it's beautiful, mate. If you were in charge, that's all I can say. It's such a load of crap, the way that our government puts the cart before the horse. I mean, you need a star before you can get funding. How do you get a star? It's like, well, you're either lucky, or you have someone that's incredibly dedicated and their parents or family provides the funding. That's basically the way it works. And it's just so sad that we can't sort of take a more holistic view of it, just as you've done. Why can't we just say, okay, look, this obviously isn't working. It's one of those things. I mean, we make amends in other areas of government. It just seems like, no, well, this is the way it's been since 1977, and we're just going to keep going with it. It's like, it's stupid. It's dumb. It's all, look, I mean, I guarantee you probably thought about that yesterday and wrote a little bit about it. That's all it takes, a bit of thinking. And it's just so sad that our politicians don't care enough to do that sort of thinking about sports. So bravo, mate. Keep pushing keep fighting the fight, man. Keep pushing that barrow.
Yes, I might have to give Grant Robertson a call, the Minister of Sport. So we'll see what happens, because it does need overhauling. And as I've said before, sports like rugby, cricket, and even rugby league that are fully commercial ventures, they should not be getting any government funding.
No.
So
it's different. Like you said, it's different at high performance. High performance is a different issue. Why are they just done the same? What? It's
quite
hard
right.
to fathom.
Anyway,
We'll get Grant Robinson to subscribe to the show. This has been another Hot Air Sports podcast. I'm Aaron signing off. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good afternoon.